Be in session. Council members could introduce themselves, starting at the end.
Barbara Mathewson.
Michelle Weil.
Linda Harrison. Dan Haggerty. Gabe Olson.
Claire Teutons. First on the agenda is the report from government agencies. Ellie?
And Plan Princeton are on there, in addition to a number of other efforts. It's a pretty long 3-page document, so I'm happy to leave this copy with you, and then I'm sure they are posted online on the Planning Commission website as well. And then the last item may be old news to you, but I just wanted to announce at the January 29th Board of Supervisors meeting, the board approved a resolution establishing a unified flood control agency, which one of the benefits of that is to allow us to better compete for state and federal funds for shoreline protection and other flood control projects. And the primary goal is to ensure greater communication, collaboration, and coordination on regional integrated water issues, including flooding, sea level rise, and stormwater management. And there's plenty of details. You can refer to the Board of Supervisors agenda from January 29th. There's also a website for the Unified Flood Control Agency, and it is resilientsanmateo.org. So those are the 3 items that I have for you, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Can you say the website again?
Yes, resilientsanmateo.org.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's just https:// or // Always get that. Great.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. Lisa Ketchum, Planning Commission now. So at the meeting on the long-range planning work plan today, I asked some questions. So in the chart, Plan Princeton and Connect the Coast, I basically had the same status as they did a year ago, and maybe a few years before that. And so Joe Leclerc was the one who made the presentation. He spoke about how they're impacted by deadline-driven projects, which are short-term planning projects. You know, people come in, they want to build something, and there are deadlines that the county has to keep that moving along. And so the planners are kept busy. There's so many of those. Planners are kept busy with that, and the long-term planning projects languish. And so as Zoe Kirsten Tucker did a year ago, she asked Steve if he needed more staff or resources. And so I asked pretty much the same question today, and he said, in pointing out how the deadline-driven projects are hindered by not having these plans in place because things are out of date. And anyway, he did say that he's going to seek additional resources. I guess they're doing budgeting. This is the season for budgeting. And says he does need more long-range planners. Actually, after the meeting was over, James Castaneda, one of the county planners who was there for the project on our agenda, came up to me and thanked me for bringing that up. He said the planners are feeling this same frustration. Everybody is. So hopefully, the Plan Princeton and Connect the Coast, it will indeed happen as proposed this year. Further clarification on that, so I asked about, because the third one for the Midcoast is the actual project of Cypress Point affordable housing, and that's a 2-phase approval project, the first one being the LCP amendment. And so I asked for further clarification on how that would work, just the LCP amendment. What else would part of that big package would actually be included there at that point, and what was the delay now in that project as well hasn't changed, the status hasn't changed since a year ago. And he said it's not so much that MidPenn hasn't submitted something, it's a matter of the county and MidPenn collaborating on how to do whatever needs to be done to have Caltrans on board at this point, and so that it can, when the LCP amendment is submitted to the Coastal Commission, they can address any concerns there, said the Coastal Commission. And he said, as far as this year and when Connecticut Coastside might get done, as opposed to Cypress Point, that perhaps there would be enough information in what they have so far in Connecticut Coastside to feed into the Mid-Penn LCP amendment. And then by the time the CDP is considered for the Mid-Penn project, when we get to that point, by then, he figured Connecticut Coastside would be complete, whether all that actually happens this year or not. But anyway, if that gives you any vague further information, it's the best I can do. And as far as the MCC request for the consistent method of building height measurement, particularly in the neighborhood commercial zone, that CDRC had also requested in 2017. It's still there on the nebulous wish list. It's no timeline scheduled, and I pressed for that, and Steve he's been pushing back on this all along. He's still pushing back. He said that the CDRC design review standards update that they are doing on their own, that's now in the table, and that he'd just as soon fold it into that, and that would make use, so I wouldn't look for that anytime soon. Then after the meeting, one little more point. Well, I don't know if you saw the table. Other things in the future items are LCP updates to address sea level rise and some more airport land use compatibility updates. Okay, so Joe Claire said there's a webinar on roundabouts. I think Jerry Champa's leading it, whether that's today or tomorrow or next week, but that's imminent, that he was looking forward to that. I guess one theme is lower cost roundabouts, and interested to learn more, and that at the meeting today, they introduced the new planner, Renee Anada, who used to be a planner for the Coastal Commission. She's now with county staff, and apparently she's also going to be on that webinar, so that's just some sort of clue as to who's going to be doing what. Thank you.
Lisa? Would the potentially increased resources have any effect on our desire for some zoning changes?
That's, okay, so we asked for an update of the neighborhood commercial zoning regulations, and it got turned down. And then we asked for, well, could you at least do the way building height is measured? Just add that one sentence into the ordinance. And we also got turned down. So that's the only thing I've been pressing on. I haven't even brought up the neighborhood commercial zoning district. If we can't even get them to quickly do the one sentence to this, I don't see it. It's not even on the horizon.
Thank you. Any other government agencies here? Half Moon Bay will not be here tonight.
I'd be happy to speak.
As a government agency?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Goodness, thank you. Catherine Slater Carter, Montero Water and Sanitary District. Montero is, we're both from Montero and for Sewer Authority Midcoast, which I also sit on. We are in the budget planning process right now, and I will say that we've been very lucky this storm. It was forecast to be 4 to 6 inches of rain, and we've had maybe 2. Poor Marin is in a lot of trouble, but our sewer systems, frankly, are not designed to handle huge amounts of water, so everything is going quite well right now. As far as the lawsuit by Half Moon Bay against Sewer Authority Midcoast side, Montero Water and Sanitary, and Granada Community Services District, that is ongoing, and it's somewhat at a sort of informal discussions are going on right now, and we don't quite know where things are going, when it will be resolved. So that it's actually very calm on the sewer and sewer front for Sam and Montero Water, and it's also for the water district. We've had over 18 inches of rain, so our underground water supply and our creeks are in good standing, and we're very happy that we've had as much rain as we have had. nothing exciting to report, I'm happy to say.
It's
Thank
just
you.
as well. Thank you. Anybody else? Let's open it for public comment. I have one speaker slip. This is for things that are not on the agenda, for 3 minutes maximum. Brandon?
Thank you. So tonight I have a special announcement. So on October 2017, the council unanimously approved the new Half Moon Bay Distillery project, which is near the Mezzaluna restaurant. And so we have just gotten all our permits in order, and we're now opening it up to the public. It has been a very arduous process, but finally we've succeeded in opening up. And we just held our pre-grand opening gala earlier this month, and we are right now clearing it up, cleaning it up, and we will be open to general public very soon. And I want to say that it is that what the council did 2 years ago was very important, as business establishments such as ours are important, as we are the face to many visitors and tourists coming to the Midcoast, and we provide memorable experiences to these visitors. And it just puts a smile on my face when someone in Manor Drive Shopping Center mentions, there's a distillery in Princeton, you know, so it really kind of gives me a smile that they have, you know, that they speak of a pleasant experience visiting the coast side. And we, as a unique business establishment, are happy to provide for the enjoyment of the public and tourists together. And I want to thank the council again, and I want to also thank the public for supporting our business establishment throughout this whole process. Thank you. And you could find our products in Costco. It'll be there by spring, and probably Walmart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.
And
I
this-
do,
yeah.
go ahead.
And I just came here just to make that announcement, because I know that you, Lisa, asked me a year ago about any updates, so I'm here for an update.
I do want to clarify that the MCC does not support any individual businesses, and that we did not promote the establishment of this business, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, regular agenda, the heart of the agenda tonight, as you all know, is for us to select a nominee to, oh, I'm sorry, consent agenda, I always forget that one. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving? Moving on. I would like to have everybody except the candidates adhere to a 3-minute speaking time. I'd like to give the candidates as much time as they need to talk to us about what their ideas and background are. The format we're going to use is you all can come sit over here. You'll have microphones. You may have to share a little, but be sure to talk into them. We'd like you to make an initial introductory statement of who you are and what you're interested in. And then the council will ask you questions or make some conversation with you, followed by questions from the community, followed by discussion, and then we'll entertain motions to vote. If that's clear, could you all come up and join us? We have, oh, go ahead. Welcome, and congratulations for And thank you for being here and for putting yourself out to, it's an exciting opportunity for all of us. Could you all introduce yourselves? Go ahead, you can start.
Sure, I'm, do you want me to kind of go
Just-
in my,
just put your name out there first,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm Mary Lorenz, and I live in Moss Beach.
I'm Nancy Marsh, I'm from El Granada.
Tamara Powell, Moss Beach.
Greg Diegas, Montero.
Thank you. I'd like to go alphabetically just to make it all totally fair in terms of making your statements. So take as much time as you want with this. We'll start with Greg.
Hi. So I guess the questions are, who am I and why am I here? I was born in San Francisco, and I went to school there and on the peninsula before I attended MIT, and I started my career back in New England. I have an engineering background, but my career was in financial services and software. I moved back to the peninsula in 1985, and I've lived on the peninsula in San Carlos, Hillsborough, and then the last 7 years in Montero since then. We moved here in part for the birds and the bees and the plants and the trees, and also because my wife has MS and benefits from a cooler climate, which we get here on the coast side. She also liked that red coffee shop, which keeps going broke and moving and changing owners. The issue for me of sustainability has been on my mind since at least 1970, when John Holdren, who was a fraternity brother of mine, you may have heard of him as Obama's science advisor, began writing about sustainability. And in addition, some professors at my department at MIT were looking at the limits to growth of humanity and forecasting what we might now call the climate crisis. They also analyzed something called urban dynamics, which I got involved in. I've taken the MIT climate science course, and what we see here in California is a microcosm of what's going on worldwide. Now, in addition to the beauty we enjoy here, there's a fragility to the situation. And as I settled into Montero, I became aware via my neighbors, including Scott Boyd, who at one point was chair of the Montero Water and Sanitary District, that there are issues related to fire, water, and sewer infrastructure. And of course, I began to realize how hard it is to drive to the hardware store on a weekend in the summer. So I contributed some financial analyses to the Montero Water and Sewer District regarding a pension plan they were doing, because I had some financial background that was relevant. And I've attended those meetings at MWSD and at SAM and here. As some of you may know, I raised the issue of the local fire preparedness back in September before the topic became, shall we say, heated. So my observation and concern is that the local environment in which we live rests on an infrastructure foundation which may be at capacity or close to it, and is certainly in need of repair. And there are several aspects of this infrastructure I think are worth careful review. For example, water supply and the drought. My hope is that I can contribute to the community by analyzing our collective decisions comprehensively, and including consideration of the infrastructure foundation upon which we rely, as well as the more immediate human interests of residents, business owners, taxpayers who may not be residents, and visitors. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Greg. Mary?
Okay. So I'm Dr. Mary Lorenz. I live in Moss Beach. And I'd like to thank everybody for this opportunity tonight to be considered as a candidate for the Midcoast Community Council. I've lived on the coast since 1981. My husband and I first moved here from Humboldt County, and we lived on a sailboat out in the harbor. And we continued to live on a sailboat for 12 years before we became landlubbers and now own a house in Moss Beach, but we still have a sailboat. We've lived on the coast since 1981. I'm a retired psychologist, and my specialty was working with individuals with substance abuse problems and also in neuropsychology. And I'm a retired research scientist. My background was in working in biotechnology. I've done 9 years of research on alcoholism and related behaviors and genetics, but also on heart disease, lung disease. and some other things. So I was thinking about why am I interested in joining the MCC, and I felt like it's sort of a natural progression for me because for the last 28 years, well actually 38 years, I've been involved in advocating for protecting our natural resources here on the coast, open space preservation, public access is really important to me, clean beaches, clean seawater, Highway 1 safety is a big thing for me, and responsible development that stays true to our LCP and to our Coastal Act, but also development that stays within our unique community. So in thinking about joining the MCC, I realized what's important to me is I've been spending many, many years more as an individual in my advocacy, and I realized that there's more power in a group. A group voice is much stronger than a single voice. And throughout many, many years I've been coming to the MCC, I've seen a lot of the positive change that you've brought about. And I've seen many combinations of individuals who've sat at that diocese, but always there's some honesty and integrity and really a strong desire to improve the quality of life on our coast. And so I feel I really want to be part of that. So what I can bring to the table is that I've spent many years developing key relationships with individuals such as Supervisor Dawn Horsley, who I have an excellent relationship with, but also with Carol Groom and Dave Pine. I've worked with Senator Jerry Hill on the access to Martins Beach. I'm very good friends with Lenny Roberts of Committee for Green Foothills. I know the Debbies, Debbie Ruddock and Debbie Penrose, and also Harvey Rarback. And I realize they're of the Half Moon Bay City Council, but what happens in Half Moon Bay has a direct impact on us who live here on the Midcoast. So what's important about these relationships is if I become a member of the MCC as I go forward, to take a project that comes from the public and advance it. These are some of the individuals that I'm going to have to work with in order to get our projects approved and moving forward. I have experience serving on many committees and councils. I was a member of the Commission on Aging for 4 years. I spent 2 years as chair of the Commission on Aging and 1 year as vice chair. I also chaired the Adult Abuse Prevention Committee under the Commission on Aging. At that time, when I was chairing the commission, it was 21 members, and I was responsible for writing the agenda, for forming the committees and assigning tasks to the commissioners. I was also a member of EDAP, the Elder and Dependent Adult Protection Team, under the guidance of District Attorney Steve Wagstaff. And I served on the NOAA Visitor Center Working Group, and I served as legislative advocate for Surfrider, San Mateo County. Currently, I'm on the Marine Protected Area Collaborative. The MPA Collaborative is a group of individuals that are made up of members of the public, members of NOAA, members of the Monteras Sanctuary. We have people from the Parks Department, and the idea is that this collaborative wants to advance knowledge of our marine environment as far as providing education to the public and providing outreach to the public. Currently, I am also a docent at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve and a seal sitter. What a seal sitter does is basically we stand down by the orange cone line so that when visitors come to the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, we sort of stand there and educate the visitors as to what's important about our harbor seals. We have 200 to 300 harbor seals that maintain a full-time residence in their rookery at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And right now they're starting to enter pupping season, So it's extremely important that we remind the public not to disturb the animals as they go through their birthing process and pupping. I feel by joining the MCC, I will be able to bring my years of advocacy, the relationships I've made with key individuals, and my interest in making the coast side a better place. I absolutely agree that at the moment, traffic is terrible. You can't leave in the morning without spending 20, 30 minutes before you get to Half Moon Bay. But I will go into some of my issues of concern at another point. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Nancy?
Thank you. My name is Nancy Marsh. Excuse my voice, it's day 4 of the cold and it's on its way away, so I feel better than it sounds. I've been a resident of El Granada just for almost 4 years. I'm a retired senior HR executive from the pharmaceutical industry. My husband Derek and I moved here from the Philadelphia area 4 years ago, but I'm a native of Los Angeles. And so we knew after 25 years on the East Coast we wanted to move back to California, but not to Los Angeles, for reasons that are obvious to anybody who's been there. So literally just looked at a map and said, where can I see the ocean and be close to an airport, because we like to travel. And that's what landed us through about, I think I spent 7 years of Saturday mornings on Realtor.com looking at houses from Montera to Half Moon Bay before we got opportunistic and got the perfect house for us. I am enjoying in these 4 years the no alarm clock and no travel aspects of retirement, with lots of time to enjoy the coastside. I'm a walker on the coastal trail and up in Corn Park. But I always recognized all the time that I was working like a banshee, that there were lots of people volunteering in the community and making lots of things, schools and environment and so on, in the community work, and I was the beneficiary of their volunteer time. And so my intent for retirement was always that once I had work out of the way, that I would pay that forward and get involved and donate time and what skills I have to the community, which I'm actually enjoying. It's actually a lot nicer than work. I was appointed to the, let me start here. My executive experience really has 2 halves. The first 18 years I worked in medical laboratories as part of what is now part of Quest Diagnostics, but it had several iterations along the way. From having an internship for my medical technology license to being general manager of a laboratory. It's in Lexington, Kentucky. So we've lived in a variety of places around. And I got recruited out of that for a temporary role in HR, which lasted for the next 18 years. In the corporate HR leadership team and on the leadership team of the global R&D organization for about 15 years. I love the science and the scientists, and actually I still do just a little bit of advisory work for scientists. I was appointed to the GCSD Parks Advisory Committee just a year ago, and I was vice chair last year. I've just been elected chair of the Parks Advisory Committee for this year. The Parks Committee had about a year of stalled activity while GCSD worked with the county on a use permit to make improvements on the El Granada medians. So once we were reformed, we got very energetic, particularly in communications. So I did a lot of work on establishing newsletters, and now we do quarterly newsletters to outreach to the community. And we now, after 4 years of having a parks remit, the district's website has a parks webpage, which I did the initial content work on. I don't actually create web pages. Thank goodness that Lisa does the one she does, because I'm real dependent on that. I just write the content. In that year, I've worked on the communications and on ideas for improving the El Granada medians, including trails and play areas. I worked on outreach for the proposed park on the Burnham Strip, as well as outreach on a proposed playground on the Balboa medians. From my work experience, and particularly the HR experience and a lot of employee engagement and employee surveying experience, I think one of the skills that I bring is listening broadly to lots of views and making sure that they all get heard and they all get equal share of voice when you're making these sorts of decisions, and that even the committee itself, the advisory committee's voice, doesn't overtake all the other incoming voices. So an example is on the granada.ca.gov website. On the parks page, there's a link to the Burnham Park outreach with all of the details and the summaries. But that's kind of work that I really like to do, and advocate for all of the voices that I think is relevant here. I do my homework. I read all background materials. I like to be really well informed. I ask good questions, and I think from my financial and strategic planning experience, I understand looking for options and understand consequences. So I would be prepared to be really actively engaged in the work of the council and work in the community. Since 2016, I've been volunteering with Coastside Hope at their monthly family harvest and at Adopt a Family, and I just in the last month joined the board of Coastside Hope. So those are my 2 community engagements thus far. In the fall of 2016, after we had about a year to settle in here, my husband and I went to the county's Civics 101 program, which is a great program to learn about the area and learn about the county. We were new to the county and new to governments and how they work, but it was 10 Wednesday night sessions, each with a different department of the county, and really informative. If you haven't been to it, I highly recommend it. But that was give us a lot of opportunities to learn about what are the various councils and JPAs, and what are the ways that are established to plug in and influence the quality of life. While I continue my role in the Parks Advisory Committee, I would like to dedicate more time to community support, and I do think MCC's role as a voice of the coast side to the county is really important. I know from my work with GCSD, there are things that come to us that aren't really in GCSD's remit, and they're really looking for a place to go, and I think this is the place for those kinds of concerns to go. I found the MCC website to be a huge resource, particularly as a person who was new to the coast side, just to see all the, what has been planned so far. So that resource has been great for me. I particularly keep going back to the Connect the Coast Side plan or the Princeton plan that we mentioned today. And so I'd like to be part of continuing that service to the community, and to be a really well-educated, well-informed resource for the community. So you certainly have a wealth of choices here tonight, and I really appreciate your attention, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce your name.
Tamar.
Tamar, okay.
Good evening. My name is Tamar. I'm going to introduce myself tonight in 3 parts. One, background about myself and where I'm from and who I am. Next, I'll talk a little bit about why I'm excited about the MCC, and then I'll finish with why hopefully the MCC will be excited about me. So I relocated to the coast in 2014, and I started out in Pacifica, and I came here from Houston. So I have an extra special appreciation for being out here, having spent time out there for a while. And I landed in Pacifica first, and about a year and a half ago had the opportunity to head a little bit further south to Moss Beach and love it more and more each day. We're about to dig a little bit deeper into getting to know the community as my 4.5-year-old joined the school system in the fall, so we're very excited about that and everything that goes along with that. During the day, I work as a forensic scientist with the San Francisco Police Department and examine forensic evidence. I've also had a variety of work experiences from genetic research to public school teaching. And throughout those varied experiences, I have the chance to take in new information, learn new things that are changing, being adaptable, and applying all those new things very quickly. And along with that comes communicating to a wide range of audiences, whether it's students in the classroom to members of a jury when testifying. So these are just kind of all background things that I think are going to trickle down to a role like this in a helpful way. Even through those early years of work I've always found it important to have a way to connect with the community and do something on the outside as well. And so some of the roles that I've taken on in that way, in Houston I worked as a court-appointed child advocate. So there are some national programs like that. I think one is called CASA, where basically you're a bridge between CPS and families that have children that are either in the system temporarily or permanently or whatever. It depends on the different cases. But basically, as a court-appointed child advocate, you're there to be a bridge between the family and CPS and kind of help support a desired outcome for all parties involved. And so we would go to court and be there with the family and kind of guide CPS with things that were going on. So that was definitely an interesting experience to kind of just learn how that process works. And then also you become you form very strong connections with the kids and with the families. Some other volunteerships I've done in the past, I worked with an organization that provided support to the homeless population in Houston. It started out just working kind of in the background in the kitchen, but as I got to know the program well, they developed some more interpersonal opportunities where you could basically work one-on-one with individuals that were seeking out help and let them know what support systems there were in the neighborhood, so bus routes, employment counseling, basically social services that were available. And then a long time ago, I kind of skipped over this part, but before going to Houston, I actually lived in San Jose for a bit. And at that time, I was a docent at Año Nuevo, so kind of early dabbling into the coastal environment out here. So this kind of brings me to the second point, which is why I'm excited about the MCC. Now that I've had a few years to settle in, getting used to living out here, working out here, parenting out here, I'm finding that I'm at that point where I want to take that next step and get involved in the community in a little bit of a more deeper way. And one of the things that's so wonderful about this area is that there are infinite ways to do that. And so thinking back about my work experience, the other volunteer opportunities that I've had in the past, and kind of what might be a good fit at this moment, what stood out to me about the MCC is that while all these volunteer things are great, I've learned a lot. Every experience is a new experience that you can learn from. But basically I was walking into a program that existed where I tell you this is how we do things, this is what you do. Whereas this opportunity, you have more of a ground-up approach. You can learn about an issue, a topic, and kind of start from the beginning to watch it come to fruition and have a really strong impact on many, many things. And so some of the issues that everyone's been talking about, from environment to safety, and of course I'm thinking about education, family issues, there's so many things to address and work on. So it seems very exciting to be able to take that step. And so what can I bring to this role? I think, again, just my varied work experience. I think that the challenges along the way, like I said, whether in the classroom or in the lab or, anything in between, those are skills that will all relate to an opportunity such as this. Learning new information, processing it, making connections with the community, with members of other board groups and things like that. I think those will all be very relevant. And hopefully, in the short time that I've been speaking, you've had a chance to see how passionate and caring I am about the spot that we're in, and having the chance to do something in a very direct and hands-on way to help support it is something I'm really excited about. So thank you for listening to my comments.
Thanks to all of you. It's going to be a very tough choice. What I'd like to do is to start at that end of the table and have each person have a chance to ask follow-up questions. Hopefully there'll be some questions for all of you.
Okay, well, I'm blown away by all of you. I would love to have you all come onto the council. I think one of my questions is, Mary, you have mentioned that you appreciated some of the accomplishments the MCC has done. Could you tell me some of them?
Well, first of all, if you just look at your website, and that's been mentioned, that the website used to be pretty bland. This is our agenda, this is what we're going to do. But now it is a wealth of information and will actually send you to different areas where you learn even more about a particular topic. So it's actually, the MCC is, in that area, has become a resource. I remember being with the MCC during some difficult times, such as the big wave development, and I was very proud of the MCC because they sort of distanced themselves from pretty strong emotions that were being paraded in front of them, and it was not an easy choice, but they were very clear in their recommendations as far as how the big wave development should or should not proceed. I've also watched how the MCC is involved with the whole connect the coast-side, the Plan Princeton. That was really amazing. I remember Lisa actually out walking Plan Princeton with Supervisor Horsley, and just getting down and looking at the streets and looking at this and looking at that. And it's one of the things that all of you have done, where many of you have actually gotten out and hit the ground and looked at things. You didn't just read a report from someone else. There's the street lights. I remember Dave Olson took on the street lights, and that was quite an accomplishment because it started off, if you looked at the coast side, so many street lights were out, and there were many people who wanted them out. And then there was the presentation on the types of street lights, and the MCC actually had to stand their ground and present the different types of street lights, and then listen to the comments of the public. And that wasn't easy to navigate because some people didn't want their light replaced. And personally, I'm still waiting for our shields. As promised, we were supposed to get little shields over the street lights. But it's some of those small things that actually, bit by bit, around the coast, if you look at how you've done your, that have improved the coast side as far, I know I'm rambling because my head's running with stuff. Your study on roundabouts. To me, that's so important because one of the things that's key to me is Highway 1 safety. When I was talking to Lynn the other night about how many people I've known personally in the 38 years I've lived here, people that have been hit head-on and died. We purchased our home from an individual who was crossing Highway 1 and was killed. We have a neighbor whose daughter was standing at the street corner of California and was hit by a motorcycle and broke her leg. And I think all of us can think about those scary times on Highway 1 where near accidents, where you've had to slam on your brakes. And so, to me, those are your accomplishments. Making those key issues known to the public, and then presenting the data, doing your research and presenting the data, and then standing your ground in hard decision-making. I know that there was times regarding, like I mentioned, big wave, that was really hard on people. And I was part of that, and it was really hard. But those are some of the things I feel that you've done. I mean, there's so many other things, but those are just some.
Cool, thank you. One of the things that we recently did was sign up for Adopt a Highway. And I'm just wondering if you would all be willing to donate some time to help, if you get on board on the council here, be able to help out. It's a couple hours a month that we would be doing that. Would that be something everybody would? Cool.
Even if you don't get on?
Yeah, even if you don't get on.
That's right. Actually, my husband saw it on a recent agenda, and he's like, oh, I want to do that, so.
Great.
Two volunteers.
That's great.
Well, I'm a very good trash picker-upper. I've participated in so many beach cleanups, and as some people know, I have picked up over 6,000 cigarette butts. And it's absolutely disgusting, but that was like in a couple months period of time along our coastal trail, mostly down by FMR. As long as we wear our little orange vests and be careful.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And Tamar, I love your energy. I love that you're a fresh face on the coast, and I think that no matter how it turns out, I would hope that you would stay involved and over the years get on the council if you don't get on, because I just really enjoyed talking to you. And Nancy as well, and Greg, I do enjoy listening to you at the meetings, and I do agree Montera could use their own person on the council. So I don't have any other questions.
I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to have a say. There's 6 of us, 4 of you, and however many people are out there. So we'll try to keep things fairly tight.
I'll make it really quick. Yeah, you guys are all very impressive, as Barbara said. I just really like I know there are a lot of important issues that the MCC is taking on, that we have taken on in the past, and that are coming up in the future. If you all had, we'll just go down the row and have starting with Greg. If there's one issue that's the most important to you, could you just say what it is and how you would approach it?
I think the major issue is the coming residence constructions, affordable housing needs to be built. There are other developments planned. I know there are many other day-to-day issues, but I think in terms of the lasting impact on the character of the coastside, those are the decisions that have to be made most carefully.
It's pretty hard to narrow it down. I'm going to echo the Highway 1 safety issues in this area, and then also issues around the environment, especially our local treasures here like the trails and like the Coastside Trail, that do see a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people from the area and then from outside the area coming in and leaving a mark, which we don't want.
I'm going to echo the Highway 1 safety, and particularly the crossings. It's one of the reasons why I go visit the Connect the Coastside plan. Watching people dart across the highway, or I didn't realize until after we moved here that we were so fortunate that we live in a neighborhood that has the 2 stoplights at Capistrano and Coronado, so we don't have to fear for our lives as we turn out of Highway 1. But all up and down the coast, I think it's a real safety issue that needs attention, and I think we need to put pressure on that. Although I know it's a really emotional issue for a lot of people to have to think about traffic calming or slowing down or stopping on the highway for any reason. It's just not safe on weekdays as well as weekends. I think that's the big one.
Well, I'm looking at 10 things here, and I'm trying to see, which one
You only
is.
choose one?
I know. So I'm going to try to combine some because they are connected. I have to agree, Highway 1 safety needs to be addressed, and I would like to see personally, near Surfers Beach. Right now, we have a red strip on part of the edge that's supposed to be no parking. I would like to see a red strip, bright red strip that continues all the way along that what's already red strip, and then all the way along the little strip of dirt that just goes between the end of that over to the beginning of the RV park entrance. And I would like to see signage put up, and I would like to see the sheriff start ticketing people who just park just to look, because that causes an unsafe condition for bicycles who want to come up and, are going up and down that section of the road. And people who just want to sit and rubberneck at Surfers Beach. And we need to provide some sort of safe crossing between that dirt parking lot and Surfers Beach, whether it's just a series of those annoying little dots where you go and blinking lights when people want to cross. We have to do something that's going to actually let people know that someone is attempting to cross the road rather than going along and seeing somebody with a surfboard and trying to anticipate, what is that individual gonna do? Are they gonna run out or are they gonna stop? And speed, I'd like to see the entire coast side have Caltrans come in and figure out the speed limit. Some places are 55, goes to 45, then up to 55, and the opposite direction is 45. That needs to be re-looked at because those speed limits were put into place, 30-some years ago, when traffic was different. Now the traffic is so severe and the speeds are so accelerated that I would like to see, and trying to get Caltrans to do anything is like trying to move a mountain, but if there's any way MCC can influence Caltrans to look at those speed limits and get them better coordinated.
Thank you all, great answers.
Well, echo the previous comments that as applicants, I'm tremendously impressed with all of you. I also know that 3 of you will not be chosen for sure. But the question I have for you, so if, unfortunately, from your perspective, you're not one of the one, I'm interested, what would you, besides Highway 1, because I'm into Highway 1 safety and all of you are, but you could still help the MCC and the community by focus on a particular issue. I mean, it's very helpful that way. So I'm curious, leaving aside the safety of Highway 1, what one issue, if you were not on the MCC, would you want to spend time in that would still help us?
Well, as you know, I just wrote you that I am going to continue to pursue the fire preparedness issue with the deputy fire marshal. I think that will be resolved with a little study and work within the coming year. After that, I'd like to take a look at the sewer system.
I think getting to know what the committee is doing on specific environmental issues and where there's a need to tap in as an outsider from that level to help out.
I'm interested in the Quarry Park master plan. Its entrance is about 100 yards from our house. And it's one that, had a lot of activity and then sat for a year with nothing happening. It had, I would say, a pretty rambunctious last public meeting. And it's not clear that there's going to be a next public meeting before they try to codify the master plan. But it seems to have gone a little bit opaque. So there, in addition to the master plan itself and understanding what's in it, so that basically from the parks position, we can leverage it and work with them. The entrance to Quarry Park sits at the back of a neighborhood of Byzantine small streets with no sidewalks and no parking. And I didn't see that addressed really at all in the plan, except maybe a minor modification to the parking. But I think that there are perhaps with the Fire Road off Highway 1 other alternatives they have to save the neighborhood a little bit and the neighbors from all the traffic that comes typically on weekends to Quarry Park. The other one that's near and dear to me, it's another raging debate and actually relates to fire safety as well, is the maintenance of the trees in what we insist on saying are public spaces in El Granada along the medians where the trees are 100 or so years old, not well maintained, not trimmed. They just take one out when it looks like it's dying in case it falls in the road. But I think it's another place to work with the county on having a little bit more of a plan to make those public spaces what they were intended to be. That's fine too.
So one of my interests are also in coastside fire protection and fire suppression. I know that the county's interested in tree removal and brush removal on the coast. My concern is the county will come in and just clear cut a bunch of trees and brush. And we already have problems with erosion. And if they just come in and cut swaths without rebuilding or revegetating in some maybe less fire-prone materials or plants, that's going to cause us grief down the road. I know our cypress trees, many of them are aging out. They're 80 years old and they're starting to really drop limbs. Many are unhealthy because of sustained drought and now years of water. And so we do need to, I understand that trees need to be removed, but when one tree is removed, we need I'd like to see a policy that another one is planted, and that is just not happening. I would also like to see that at Surfers Beach, at the RV lot, regarding that bathroom, that in the lease says it is a public bathroom. I don't know how much MCC can weigh in on that particular lease. I know you weighed in on the proposed different three areas where the bathroom might be placed by Half Moon Bay. Personally, I'd like to see that whole day use lot, most of that day use lot be part-time parking, time limited, and more ADA parking. And I'd like to see access to the public bathroom that is on the RV lot. I think the public deserves that and is owed that public bathroom for those that are over on that dirt lot near Surfers Beach and also use the beach and also use the coastal trail along there. I'd like to see that all new development within the coastal zone be required and be accountable for managed retreat of their property and removal of any debris from any beaches or the ocean caused by their property if erosion comes back so far their property falls into the water, and that this should be placed in a deed restriction. At the moment, it's more that only like Valmar Bluffs or a home that was built on the bluff overlooking Fitzgerald Marine Reserve on an eroding cliff. It's only if that home is actually built on that edge where there's an eroding cliff where they have to have the deed restriction. But we are suffering from such erosion, massive erosion on the coast, to say something has a 50 or 100-year lifetime before it hits the house, you know, it's accelerated. So I would like to see somehow it extend beyond any home within the coastal zone, which actually is quite a setback.
Okay.
I can keep going, but okay. I got it. I got it. Okay.
Yes, I'd like to echo that you all seem extremely qualified. Thank you all for your enthusiasm for I also want to thank Michelle and Len for asking my first two ideas. So I had to go to number 3. Many people in this room are aware that there has been a lot of members of the community that have been supporting a underpass at Graywell Cove. I believe there was a 91% poll next door in favor, over 1,000 signatures on a petition for this. So would you be, if you were elected or appointed, would you be in support of a feasibility study for an underpass at Graywell Cove and potentially other locations?
Let's start with Mary this time.
I would support a feasibility study. My understanding is the difficulty is that the underpass has to be ADA compliant. And so to make that grade, you have to start pretty far back in the current parking lot, and whether that is possible.
They have solutions to that for the geographic constraints. So there'd be a lift, ADA lift.
Okay.
Which are widely used in the Bay Area already.
Because that would be one thing that would be important to me, is that it becomes ADA compliant, because right now, if you are mobile restricted, it's difficult or impossible to get down to Graywell Cove anyway.
It's probably going to be controversial. I think before a feasibility study about a specific solution, I'd like to see updates on what is the traffic between the parking lot and the beach. The parking lot serves both hiking as well as the beach. I suppose I revealed my bias is that a lighted crosswalk wouldn't slow traffic that much on weekends when it's crawling anyway, and it wouldn't slow commuter traffic in the morning at end of day. And so I tend to start simple and cheap, and, you know, let other studies go on, but I think I'd start with what's the feasibility of the simplest, cheapest solution, and whether it would solve the problem. Sorry, Dan.
I would support a feasibility study. It would be a good way to explore that as an option.
I don't have a problem with feasibility study, but I agree with Nancy. I think we heard at least 3 alternatives. One guy even wanted to move the road. So, I mean, I would keep my mind open before I would make a decision to narrow in on any one of those. But I don't see why you couldn't get estimates on the feasibility of all 3 or 4 alternatives before you narrow it down.
Thank you.
Tough to come up with new subjects. I'll retreat to one of my topics. So I talked to a lot of different departments in the county and some folks at Caltrans a fair amount on Great Whale Cove and other projects. If you were asked as a member of the MCC to pick a county agency or a state agency to work with, which one would you pick? Or which one would you refuse to pick? Or refuse to work with?
Karen, you want to start with that?
Well,
I've worked with many different, I've worked with parks, and I've worked with the Board of Supervisors on things. I think, you know, picking one is really hard, because it depends on what I want to carry forth, given what the public interest is. I think I'll go with the one that would be my least favorite, and I think that would be Caltrans.
Easy choice.
I think for me, it's like, my mind immediately went to the Civics 101 program and all the different groups that we talked to. And actually, I was impressed with a number of them. My career is in health and healthcare, and so that came to mind, which also brought probably another issue that I think is a co-site issue, and that's the very limited access to healthcare or emergency care. So that's one that comes to mind for me. I was also very impressed with the sheriffs and the court system. And I probably would dare to talk to Caltrans, because I just don't know any better.
Yeah, I don't know that I would really be able to pick just one. I think it would kind of depend on the issues and doing my research on the best place to start with outreach. Yeah, so I think I would just take some time getting to know the best place to start.
Dave, I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you
I'm
suggesting that you would delegate a particular agency to each of the members of the council, or?
It's mostly a question of, you know, do you have a favorite agency
Well, I think the
to
most
love or hate?
But the most important place to start, I think, is already a base that Lisa's covered. I mean, I would pick the planning commission, but she's there now. And in part because of the job you did is why I'm volunteering here, because I didn't realize we were gonna have a competition to help do some work, which is great. I don't have a problem with working with Caltrans. I've dealt with difficult organizations my whole life, and I have an engineering background, so if it need be, I'll be glad to take it.
And I will also echo what everybody else has said. You would all be great additions to the council. So I do hope you will all stay involved in one way or another.
Well, since my first, second, and third questions have all been asked, I think I'm not going to pick up too much of your time with that. I do want to, I think, open our attention to the community, both for questions and for comments. Before you do that, though, I do need to let you know that we had 4 letters in support of one candidate, which is Greg, from Vic Abadi. Greg, I'm not sure how to say his last name.
Abadi.
Oh, okay, I didn't know, I didn't say his name either. But Greg Warftig?
Gary Warhaftig was the co-founder of the Montero Water and Sanitary District, along with Lou Wall. If I remember correctly, we got Clinton Kopp involved. So he's one of the founders of the infrastructure on the Midcoast.
Okay. Deborah Lardy?
Sure, she's an accountant. She's attended CPA, several of the Montero Water and Sewer District meetings, and I think we shared some insights when it came to the finances of
Okay.
Montero Water and Sewer District.
And Aaron Demziger, who's also a former
Was on the
MCC.
council, yeah.
So all of these people spoke highly of Greg. So I have no speaker slips, so if anyone would like to, okay. Please limit 3 minutes each.
Okay, I'll make it real fast. This is a question for each one of you. If you are on the council, you've talked about various things you'd like to see done. What's your vision of our community in 15 years? Because we have made a lot of changes in the last 15. There are more coming. What would you like to see the priorities be? And who, when you're on the council, are you speaking for? Thank you.
Who wants to start?
I can like that, okay, I'll start. 15 years is a really long time, but where my head went with that, Catherine, was there's a reason why, and maybe for those of us who moved here recently, why we were attracted to this space, and I think that's true for people who've been here for 40 or 50 years as well. And so I think the challenge is, without being now I've got mine, so everybody else stay out. I think the challenge is to maintain a population that our infrastructure can support and maintain that balance at a reasonable level, which I think is not, given particularly the highway, not a lot bigger than what it is now. But I think there are some sacrifices with that view, so it really would take some more thinking than I've done on it. But I kind of like to maintain the semi-rural quality that we have, and about the size that we have, where local is really local, and not too sprawling. I'm originally from Los Angeles, so it's such an anonymous place, and that's why I didn't want to go back there. This is a place that has a lot of character, so I think there are trade-offs along the way, but I really want to hold on to that rural, small town, local, where you know people character, and let that be kind of a guide.
What I'd like to see is that there is a document somewhere, and I looked for it and I cannot find it, that says that, and it was written years ago, it says that the coast side has the capacity for so much density, number of homes, and traffic. But that was written at a time when it looked into the future. But I believe that particular document does not fit what we have today. I feel we've pretty much maxed out.
That was the planning documents for the local coastal program.
Okay, that's where I read it then.
No, it's not. It predates that.
And so right now what I see is the county is saying, oh, the coast still has space for another 5,000 units, 10,000 units or whatever. But we're physically restrained by mountains, by the ocean, and Highway 92 and Highway 1 going to Devil's Slide and south. We can't go much further out and inward. And so what I'd like to see in my vision for the coast is that we slow down or change our attitude towards building giant homes, not so much anymore. Much smaller homes that are more affordable for folks. But also that, yeah, it was right in my head. 2 seconds, I have to go back and kind of think. That maintaining our rural atmosphere, our open space preservation, our natural resource protection, these are the things that bring money to the coast. People do not come, visitors don't bring their cash to the coast in order to look at more buildings. That is a perfect example of that is if we look at the empty mall at the Oceana Hotel. People didn't come here, they don't come here to go to a mall. They might now because the hot dogmas in there. But they come here to look at the ocean, to go to the beaches, to look at the, go to Fitzgerald and look at tide pools. So my vision for the coast is that we can restrict the type of development we are pursuing and allowing and keep that rural nature, not just for us, but because that also brings money into the coast. There's not a heck of a lot here that brings in the cash that supports the systems here on the coast.
Okay, so, in very general terms, I think we're all here because this place is very special. So, in 15 years, or whatever number we put on the end of that, we want to hold on to all of those things that make it the special place that it is now. One of the things that struck me is everyone's on Nextdoor, right? And so just in perusing some of the dialogue, there's a lot of heated passion. Sometimes that translates to hostility along the way. And for me, that it juxtaposes that special quality that we have here in this place. So I guess in kind of an idealistic way, somehow balancing the things that you're talking about, because I agree that is what makes this place so special, but how we kind of work out some of that dialogue, I think, to maybe make it a little bit more gentler, or find a way to just bring it down a notch.
So if I have a constituency, I would say it's in Montera, because that's where I live, and that's who I got to know first. So I can't claim to speak for all of Montera, but certainly I'm in touch with dozens of people and have made contact. 15-year vision, I would say two things. Echoing your point, can't we all just get along? So I do think there's some need for building collaborative efforts with Half Moon Bay and amongst our own agencies. And that's something I'd like to see advanced. I think we have the foundation for that because of your efforts, and I'm not just kissing up to you, but we have involved citizens who want to be part of the community. That's a strength. I would like to see that persist. And then finally, I think whatever we do, we have to be in balance with our environment and our infrastructure. So if there's going to be growth, we have to pay as you grow. And so whatever that means in terms of required infrastructure improvements, highway improvements, water improvements, to keep the growth in balance so that we don't undermine the fire, water, and sewer security that the existing residents currently should be enjoying.
I just want to thank everyone who's here, who came and volunteered to come. I look forward to seeing you involved, and we have so many different things you can be involved in. I would encourage you to continue, and I will leave you my phone number, my email, and I'd love to sit and have coffee with every single one of you. Thank you for your efforts, for what you've done and what you're going to do.
Barbara?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Clearly, you have 4 outstanding candidates here. I think any one of them would be a great choice. I did want to stand up here and just say that for the last couple of years, I've been working with Nancy Marsh on the Parks Committee for GCSD, and she has an incredible amount of time and energy, and she's immensely competent. So everything she does really well. And so I think in terms of fitting into a group, that energy and that competence would be extremely valuable to you. I also wanted to add one question to put to everyone here. One of the things that you haven't talked about much tonight is sustainability and the future of the coast side in terms of climate change and coastal retreat. And I know we've had a lot of talk, but I do think that's a really important issue that all of us need to pay attention to. And I just wondered if you could just briefly touch on where you see the MCC playing a role in that issue. Thanks.
Well, first of all, climate change, sea level rise is one of my very close interests. I have attended all of the climate change and sea level rise sustainability presentations that Dave Pine has put on for the county. And right now, the San Mateo County Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Assessment lists Highway 1 at Surfers Beach as highly vulnerable to sea level rise. And this section of road is our access to community, residential communities and recreational areas. It serves over 28,000 vehicles apparently a day go on Highway 1. So as far as looking at vulnerability to the Midcoast, including that section of Half Moon Bay, Highway 1 at the section where Surfers Beach is in dire need of attention. And to me, what that means is we have to seriously look at moving Highway 1 inland. Now, whether that means I know, and I don't know what the rules are around Burnham Strip, but to me, you know, if it were possible, if Highway 1 could extend down to like the RV park, cross Burnham Strip, hook up with the Obispo in front of the fire station, and somehow respect the homes that are there, because even though there's efforts to replenish the sand at Surfers Beach, physics dictates sand moves south. And I think that's one area where the erosion is gonna really take its toll. I would also like to see the MCC weigh in and tell the county no more building of homes on bluffs with raw edges. I know at Valmar Bluff that there was 4 homes approved, and now they're looking at, if you look at the erosion at Valmar Bluff on those bluffs, once that foot goes, it's gonna start exceeding backwards, retreating backwards. And even in my understanding is the deed restriction for those homes at Valmar Bluff, that because there's a coastal trail, public access, they're gonna have to allow public access through their private land if and when the bluffs erode that far back. So I really would like to see that consideration. No more building on these raw bluff tops. I'd like to see it Murata Road. County come in, buy those homes along Murata Road, help those individuals move, because Murata Road is gonna be lost. There's no amount of rocks or walls or whatever, that road is already caving in. And that's gonna disrupt the coastal trail along there. So I think sea level rise and the coast vulnerability, if you look at the maps, our section of coast, Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, are in dire need, and we're targeted.
I think one of the, the first MCC meeting that I came to, the RCD presented, and I went to the, not the most recent, but I think a year ago, January, sea level rise meeting that was held at the Miramar parking lot on a King Tide Day. And what struck me is there were 4 or 5 different people who gave presentations on different, one was on the rebuilding Surfers Beach, one was on the Princeton plan, one was on the broader county plan. And I thought there are so many fingers touching this, and everything that they're doing is interesting. And then you have the native plant removal and RCD is doing, and then there were the trees coming out of Montero to save the little flower. It seems to me there is all kinds of stuff going on, and one of the roles that MCC could play, in the same way that the information on the website has been so helpful, is to integrate the information so that we can be well informed about all of the things that are out there and coming and maybe be less surprised. But also start to see them all as one package and make sure that all of those different efforts are actually working in a symbiotic way with each other. I don't think they necessarily work at cross purposes, but they seem disjointed sometimes, and there's rework sometimes. So perhaps that's where a council like this, working with the various county agencies, could do a better job.
So I think the term sustainability, inherently the implication is that there's going to be some sacrifice involved from one side or another. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we do want sustainability, we need sustainability. But if you're not kind of in the mix of the conversation, all you might be hearing is, well, why do I have to give that up? Or why do I have to not have this? Or why can't I do that anymore? And so I feel like the MCC could bridge that gap of information and transfer of knowledge and really help inform the community why these things are important, why this is not really a sacrifice, but it's really a benefit to the people that are here now or who are going to be here.
So I tried to mention in my introduction, my interest in sustainability goes back to the 1970s. In 2003, I formed the Energy and Environment program for the MIT program in California, which became MIT's largest alumni program and won some awards. So I'm pretty well versed in climate science and sustainability technologies required. But I think to Nancy's point, I'm unclear how much the MCC by itself is actually going to be able to do. I think we really have to work through the Planning Commission and the county agencies. And again, we have to be in balance, and I would echo the point you're making and the one I tried to make earlier. We have a group of entities out here that, like it or not, are in fact loosely coupled. I don't think you could call them linked or integrated, but, you know, I talked about what happens in fire in Montero isn't going to stay in Montero, and what happens in sewage in Half Moon Bay isn't going to stay in Half Moon Bay. So I do think we have to have a more integrated view of what all our agencies are going to do together, and that with the Planning Commission, I think, is the challenge.
I would like to take mercy on our panel here. You've been talking to us for a long time. We've put a lot of pressure on you. I'd like to switch to the council and have us make some discussion. And if you guys would like to go have a seat and get some well-deserved rest, and give you all a good hand up.
Thank you.
Well, this is a time.
Before public comment is over, if I may just say a couple of things. I apologize for not jumping in before you had everybody move. You can go ahead and sit if you'd like. That way you're not. I just wanted to say on behalf of San Mateo County Supervisor Don Horsley, I want to thank each of you for your commitment to your community, both here and other communities that you've lived in. I'm really impressed by the candidates that have spoken today. And also just wanted to say that regardless of the outcome, I hope that each of you will continue to stay involved to ensure that the decisions and investments made by the Board of Supervisors and the county continue to reflect the needs and priorities of the people that live, work, and play in San Mateo County, and specifically on the coast side. So thank you again for your time.
This is a time when I'm sorry I'm the chair because I have a lot of things to say now and I have to wait. So, Barbara, do you have any comments?
No, I'm not starting off, no.
Okay. Go around the table.
Well, I was impressed by every single one of the candidates. You know, each one of them has their own things that they care about and brings a lot of experience and really important issues to the table. I don't know, am I supposed to talk about? I don't know.
Any considerations you have about how you would make a choice, or what factors you're looking at, or how you saw people measuring up to what you're looking for?
Well, I think everyone exceeded the expectations that I had. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variety of experience. You know, I think if I'm, do you want me to speak about each one? And
Either way you want to do it.
yeah, I mean, I think, just starting with Greg, I know he comes highly recommended. He has been involved, especially in the areas of fire safety and the Montero Water and Sanitary District. I appreciate the enthusiasm he brings. I think fire safety is a really important issue for us, so I really like that. Mary obviously has a lot of connections and has a lot of experience, been in the area for a really long time, and is very passionate about a number of different issues and couldn't restrain herself to even one. But I like that. I think Nancy has, you know, I like the way that she thought about things. I like the way that she, you know, approaches things from, you know, very thoughtful perspective. And I think her experience in HR probably contributes to that. And then Tamar, I think she brings a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of experience in, you know, different ways, different types of experience. I you know, I really like what she had to say about sustainability, and I think, you know, that's really important. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough decision, honestly. Like, you guys are all really great, so I'd like to hear what other members of the council have to say.
Well, as everybody has said, uniformly, you're all great candidates. I think there's one distinctive feature that tilts my opinion toward Greg, and that is we don't have anyone from Montero on our council. And although we don't have enforced districts, it's very important to have a voice that represents that particular area. So I find that a pretty compelling reason. And again, because every one of you is so terrific, I know I can say that without really qualitatively distinguishing you that, but that's a particular characteristic that is important to me.
Barb's from Montero, am I right?
Well,
Or on the border?
I'm on the border. I own a house in Montero. My daughter lives there.
She's a few yards from Montero.
Yeah, I'm right on the,
She's
right
a
on the
split
border.
personnel.
I am.
I'm just really happy to hear this much passion for our community, from up and coming leaders of our community, our current leaders, experienced leaders. So, yeah, it's gonna be a tough decision. I'm really happy with all candidates.
Yeah, I've been through this process several times, and doing this in public is never easy. It's even harder in some ways when all the candidates are good candidates as they are this time. So, you know, I have conflicting things driving my decision, so I just won't say any more right now.
Barbara, are you ready to comment?
It's a very hard decision. I like every equality about all four candidates, so.
Well, I like the fact that Greg is already involved in specific projects and that he's driving them. I like the fact that Tamar got a child going into the school system, and I think that is really important because that's something that we really haven't paid enough attention to. I love Mary's enthusiasm and the scope of your thinking. I mean, you make connections really well between things. I think that one of the things I'm thinking about, though, is that we're replacing Lisa. Not that anybody can replace Lisa. But I'm thinking about what Lisa did for this council, and most of it boils down to the fact that Lisa thinks really clearly. She goes to the heart of things. She doesn't neglect the details, and she uses those things to make something happen. I think all of our candidates could do that, but I'm particularly thinking that that Nancy has that type of thinking style, which isn't everything we need, but it is, when I think about losing Lisa, that's a part that I would think about trying to replace. Do we want to talk more, or should we entertain motions?
Do you want to talk about how we're gonna, vote?
What we talked about doing was, if someone wants to make a motion that we vote on a certain candidate, then we'll do that.
And then it's just a yes, no on that candidate?
We would hear all the motions for a particular candidate and see how that goes.
Excuse me, if I could be so rude, I think it might be better for you to have sort of a private discussion and a private
can't do
vote.
We're not allowed
You
to under the
can't?
Brown Act. That's why this is so painful.
Can we do some kind of a ranked choice voting?
We could do that. How would you
I
suggest?
That would
think
be
that
allowed,
that's a
but-
good idea, Dan.
Okay.
But we're not set up to do the ranked choice. But we could do it, but
Or we could just, I guess we should have, I thought we had decided this beforehand, but it's really not working out the way we had thought about doing it.
One consideration,
mentions your number one candidate, that would be.
well, one consideration when it comes time to vote is not as a secret ballot, but for each person to write their vote down. Otherwise, if we go in sequence, then you're going to be trying to calculate as you do it. So I would put forward the idea of just write it down on a piece of paper with your name and then see where they come out.
And then go around the table and say, here's what I wrote down.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I have a question. Do we have to arrive at a consensus on one candidate, or if, let's say it's split 2-1-1, like, or 3-2-2 or something like that, like does the person who gets the most votes become the nominee?
Isn't it the case that this is a recommendation to the supervisor and they're free to choose whichever candidate they want?
If we're stuck 2-2-2 or 3-3, then it goes to Don's office, and I'd like to avoid that.
Don's and the supervisors will make the choice, but historically, they have always gone with our recommendation.
So our goal tonight is to have at least 4 of us agree on one candidate.
That would be.
That would
a
be
goal.
ideal.
Okay.
Or, yes, that would be ideal. And I don't think we've ever had quite this much trouble, partly because we have 4 people that are really very good. Yes, please.
One time when we did this, when I was on the council, it came down to 2 people, and I think, Dave, didn't we recommend 2 people to the supervisor, and then we chose, wasn't that it, or something like that?
I do not remember, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did.
Or might have had a top person, then a second person, and we gave both those names with the explanation. It didn't have to be,
That would-
basically, whatever your discussion is and the outcome, you just report that. If you don't come out
Yep.
with a clear winner, you report what you came out with.
Yep.
Whatever happened.
What if we each wrote down our top 2? And we'll put it on paper, and then we'll go through it.
That's fine with me.
Fine with me? Yes?
Okay. I suspect you are a little bit blindsided by having 4 really qualified people come up with it. In years past, we couldn't get anybody to volunteer to be on this. There were elections we've had where we couldn't get enough candidates to fill the open seats and so forth. And I suspect you're a little surprised, and it makes decision-making very tough. I would hope you could keep the decision-making here and end up with one person to go over to the county. This is a body that represents the citizens of the coast side to the county. And a lot of our gripes and a lot of our passion and arguments and so forth over the years have been with county imposing county things on us. This is the one chance for the citizens of the coast side to have their representation to the county, to advise the county on what we citizens of the coast side, are going through on various issues and so forth. If you come to a tie vote, this happens quite frequently, and you can have a tie vote, wean it down to maybe 2 people or whatever, have more discussion, vote again, and I would assume that you could, this is done all the time, maybe go through this process and your own thinking might shift a little bit if you have a number of votes to resolve a tie with a little discussion in between. And I can't, it's embarrassing to have a lot of good people and then to be sitting up there in public and have to make these decisions on these people. Okay, thank you.
And we don't want to have anybody feel like, gee, we didn't like that person because we liked all of you.
Yes. And I would say to the whole council that Carl's implied point that it is not just our own preferences, it's our belief on who will best represent the community that should guide us.
So we need
A plan.
To me, the easiest plan to do would be for each person to vote for 2, and then see if we have a top 2 out of that.
That's a ranked choice voting, as Dan suggested.
As we go around the table and say our top 2, then that'll give us a clearer idea as to how it's going to go.
Well, like I said, I favor everybody writing it down, and then we already differentiated the 2, we're just saying 2 votes, and then see where we're at.
We can't just write it down and put it in the table, though we have to say it out loud.
Yeah, no, I just suggest people write it down now.
Okay.
Are we writing, are we stating it in order or just?
Yeah, in order.
I mean, in order of preference 1, 2, or just we're stating our top 2?
I'd say 1, 2.
Yeah, your top 2 in order.
Barbara, are you ready?
I'm writing.
You're still writing? Okay.
We're not explaining each other, we're just giving up.
We're what?
We're not explaining it, we're just.
No, we're just saying it. Number 1 and number 2. Barbara?
I have Tamara and Mary.
I have Tamara and Nancy.
Greg and Tamar.
I have Mary and Greg.
Hold on. Len, you had Greg.
And Tamar.
Tamar. Dan, you had
Mary and Greg.
I have Mary and then Nancy.
I have Nancy and then Mary.
Hold on a second.
Tabulating
Let me add
this.
things up. A long time stay in ranked choice.
Well, I think
He's going to do it.
I'll get it. Just give me a second. I just have to think of the right way to do it.
Two for the first one and 1 for the other.
You need paper.
I don't know how he's gonna do it.
Okay, so if I did my math correctly, the ranking on that was Mary at 6 points, So I ranked, if you were number one, I gave you 2. If you were second, I gave you 1 point. So Mary came in at 6 points. Tamar came in at 5 points. Nancy came in at 4, and Greg came in at 3. So I would recommend that the voting was close enough that we could do a runoff between Mary and Tamar, but that's up to the chair.
You know, these are just all so close. I mean, we could do that. But cutting any one of these people off at a 1 point threshold seems kind of arbitrary.
Okay, well, the other way we can do it is we can eliminate 1 person and then do 3, and then 2. That's the other way to do ranked choice.
Okay, well, let's.
We have to drop at least 1.
Could we go through one more time so I could just write down the results?
Yeah, that would be
So
good.
that I have a record of it?
Can you state it again?
Yeah.
I did Tamara and Mary.
And Tamara and Nancy.
Greg and Tamar. Greg and Tamar.
What was yours?
Mary and Nancy.
And Nancy and Mary. So everybody's got at least 1 first choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tamara and Mary have gotten the most first choice.
yeah. Typically, you would take the top 2 and do a runoff, but I'm fine with doing elimination.
I think we might want to just drop 1 at a time.
Okay, works for me.
Okay. Which leaves us with Mary, Tamar, and Nancy.
Okay.
It's gonna be, the Greg's cross out, it's the same result.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, let's do it
It's
again
gonna
and
be
maybe.
3 to 3.
Which is why I was gonna go the other way, but the
If-
next
If
round of
Greg-
voting, nobody gets to vote for Greg.
That will change it.
If everyone keeps their second choice vote, then,
They could still change it.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's just go redo it again with 3 candidates ranked. Please consider changing your first and second choices this time as you rethink it with only 3 candidates and see if something changes. So it's between Tamar, Nancy, and Mary. Barbara, you want to start off? Are you ready?
I'm going to stay with Tamara and Mary.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay with Tamara and Nancy.
Nancy and Tamar.
Okay.
I'm staying Nancy.
I'll go Nancy, Mary, which leaves us Tamar with 2, 4, 6. Nancy with 2, 4, 6. Mary with 2, 4, 6.
Yeah. Which is why I said
Yeah.
we really should have done the other.
Okay, we need to do the other one unless we're going to send in 3 names, which I don't want to do.
Now we created the tie.
What was your other?
My first proposal was do a runoff between the top 2, which was Mary and Tamar.
Maybe we should what? All 3 of them all have 2 first place votes too. We can't even go by first and second.
So it was necessary to have it.
We could draw lots.
Well, or we can do, as Carl suggested, we can discuss and vote again.
So let's discuss. Why,
Now
Yeah.
that I'm no longer involved. Could I say something?
Sure.
My understanding of the Brown Act, and I saw this at Montero Water and Center, is that personnel issues can be discussed closed door.
This
this
not a
isn't personnel, we're not
issue.
hiring anybody.
You don't view that as a personnel issue?
No, the county council's office is very clear that this is not a personnel issue.
So if we were behind closed doors, what would we be saying?
Well, if I was behind closed doors, I would be saying that I like the energy of new people coming in. But I also respect the fact that Mary's lived here a long time. I've heard her talk at various meetings over the years. I don't know Mary, but I've listened to her, and I do have respect for her, but I just like I like the idea. We have Michelle that's new to the coast. It just seems like, I like the idea of some new blood. And, all right, I'll change my vote to Mary first, Tamar second, if that helps.
Maybe we can talk and then vote.
Yeah, if you're gonna change it, everyone should
Yeah.
have the opportunity to.
That didn't fit with what you just said, I don't think.
What didn't fit?
I thought you were really in favor of new people.
Well, I am, but I don't wanna be here all night, and it seems like that's what's gonna happen. This was supposed to be a short meeting, remember?
So much for going through our process.
So much for letting things evolve.
Which we just each,
I was just
Say a
gonna
few
say, if you could speak to why you chose Tamar first initially?
The reason I chose her originally was, I picture myself 40 years ago moving down here, moving first to El Granada, then to Montera. And the MCC was evolving at that time. And I wanted to be involved, but I worked full-time and I was raising 2 kids. And I wish I had. I wish I had followed through and become involved back in the late 70s, early 80s. And that's why I felt that she really wants to raise her children here and has some new views. So originally I originally was for Mary, and I still am for Mary. But most of us on here, been around here for a long time, and I like the idea of some new blood.
That's certainly been something that's been being talked about in the community in general recently, in the newspaper, whatever places. Like, how come it's only old people on these things? 'Cause
Yes, we certainly had that discussion when we were several of us were talking with Tamar, as we're biased toward retired people because they have the time.
But I have a lot of appreciation for what Mary would bring to the council as well.
it's not like we're gonna say, oh, somebody doesn't have anything to offer, because they obviously do. It's just a question of what are we looking for, who would fit in best with this group, who would be able to communicate with the community. Not that any of them couldn't.
But I've got one other suggestion, Greg, to avoid a tie this time. We could each just choose one candidate this time.
Well, if we had done that last time, it still would have been a tie.
No, because we have 6 people voting
We had two,
for
two,
3
two.
candidates.
We had-
so, unless.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I think, one of the things that's really important, being on our council is coming up with creative ideas. And being some level of an activist, and frankly, I've witnessed a lot of that in Mary, and I like her style. She's very creative, very smart, and I think that weighs a lot for me. I do like the fact that Tamara has a child going to the school district. And her passion for the community as well. And I also like that they're both open to a feasibility study for the railroad code.
Bottom line. Well, I think I may be in the process of changing my mind. You'll be glad to hear.
But each time you can change. I mean, I had put Greg at one, and Nancy wasn't on the list, but when Greg was removed from the list, I put Nancy on because I thought both Greg and Nancy had a real sort of good analytical process mind for that, and that's important to have. And Tamara, had different characteristics that were strong there, especially on the young side. You can't have a sort of deeper connection to the coastal at its heart that Mary represents, both in terms of spirit and sharp views as well. So, but so it's a really thin edge. I remain very uncomfortable that we're not putting a Montero person on, and I've always felt it's important to have a balance of the three communities.
And it is going to be pretty tightly shifted toward El Granada, but Lost Beach people are certainly catching up.
Yeah.
Well, but neither of that sort of talks against the point of it.
Well, I'm, as I mentioned, kind of leaning toward who's going to be somebody who. This is so hard to do. But I am actually probably, if I had to do two people now, I would probably do Tamara and Nancy.
All right, are we ready to vote again? Does anybody else want to say anything before we run ourselves through that one again?
So should we go around again? First and second choice?
Yeah.
Well, did we narrow it down? Probably just first, right?
We're just going through it again and see if we adjusted our views.
Okay.
Tamara.
And
Mary.
Tamara and Nancy.
Nancy and Tamara?
Mary and Tamara.
Tomorrow, Mary.
Tamara and Nancy.
I'm sorry, Elaine.
Nancy and Tamara.
I believe we have a winner. Tomorrow's it.
We do have to vote on this.
All right. Is there a motion?
I nominate Tamara as our candidate.
A little second.
All in favor? Congratulations.
Not through it.
I'm going to make a motion that we not do the second item on the agenda.
I would go for that.
Okay.
So what we can do to advance it is I made my best effort at the notes Dave had and the previous table by Lisa, and I put down items and names.
Should we thank all the candidates?
Thank you, everybody, before you leave. Thank you so much. Though this was very painful for all of us.
Well, it was joyful and painful.
But we really do want to not lose track of anyone. So please keep coming.
Oh, we're not gonna go away.
I hope not. You come back, okay? Okay, moving on, council activity.
Continue the discussions with Caltrans, the review of the Must Beach program.
I think we have to talk a little bit louder so we might fix it up.
We're online now?
Yeah,
I stayed in touch with Caltrans on trying to set up a meeting to look at the Moss Beach corridor that is coming along.
I think 3 of us are going to the wildfire conference in 2 weeks, so we'll have things that come out of that. Coming agendas, I'm sorry.
Could we define, just to briefly, council member activity, because I've done some research, and I kind of feel that some research that I've recently done, I should be able to report on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the research I've recently did was on 2 things: roundabouts and intelligent traffic signals, and also the timing of the Frenchman's Creek.
You know, I think for council activity, you kind of basically say what topics you've been on,
Right.
and then if there's detail, then try to put it into an agenda item.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, there's a lot of information out there, and I would, I'm finding after looking for the study that says that 24 intersections were analyzed. We don't have that complete information as to what type of intersections, if they were. Our Moss Beach is very unique with a heavy dominant flow, and so I think we need to ask for more information based on the research that I did.
So Len and I have both involved in that. You can talk, both of us, or individually or together outside the meeting if you want. We can go over that and
So you
see if we can answer your
You
questions.
have the results of the study.
I don't know, I don't know, but we can see, and if not, we can try and get the answers.
So upcoming agendas include the Devil's Slide Ride, presentation by the Bay Area Air Quality District, and it sounds like perhaps some information on the lights. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Adjourn.
Thank you.